Hello and welcome to another one from the Cronos Watcher here on the 25th of March, checking out the charts on a Friday night. Always some interesting action just before the weekend, so we'll try and keep this nice and snappy because we'll do a few more kind of detailed ones and looking what happened over the course of the weekend. First of all, here anyway, I want to switch over to MMF. I think I'm going to eliminate Savannah and M-Share for now, just to keep the length of the streams down for myself, and just so I can keep an eye on the ones I'm kind of most interested in myself. And if it comes up that people are looking for Savannah and M-Share again, we can start covering them once again. So just here for MMF on our daily since yesterday. We have hit a top, it seems. Yesterday we hit a high of 114. It seems it should be different, but we were closing at 116 in the end. So really topped up back from that pretty low range of 98 cents. Again, a significant psychological area in the $1 range. Very strong recovery then of what have we got? 18% over only 3 days for MMF, so quite a clear sign of strong support for the ecosystem and etc. at the moment, much like many of the dips we have seen all the way up here over the course of the past month or so. We're seeing a faster recovery even than other times before. You can see there was one example here back on the 16th of February, which I believe might have been another Launchpad event, something like that. But we had a 40%, 47% movement downwards here, and you can see that it took over the course our high of the little, but that Paddy's Day movement, that 17th of March movement, was 30 something percent, and it has only taken us then the course of let's call it from the 19th, where it's sold back up from that huge low of 82 cents, and it's gone from on the 19th of March, that lower range of 95 cents all the way up only over the course of 5 days. So very strong correction here from MMF, and just some signs to show that there might be continued growth in the ecosystem. You see we're starting to grow above our ICO levels here. Any of the FUD we were experiencing around the early days, where people literally needed to be told that DeFi was risky, is now a thing of the past, and the ecosystem is growing as we speak. Of course, we're going to see profit taking and downside corrective moves in the course of this upwards trend, but for now it seems MMF continuing to go from strength to strength. Obviously the weekend being a time of high volatility both up and down, I would expect myself to see a bit of upwards movement out of MMF. Of course we'll see some profit taking, but overall I predict a little more ecosystem excitement, some FOMO buying. Again, the weekend being a range of high volatility, opposite to the traditional markets, because that's when a lot of people are literally available. They're off work, they are, at the weekend barbecue, having a beer afterwards kind of thing, and the sales start flying. It's a traditional thing in DeFi, especially with the Cronos chain. I noticed the volumes go up the weekend because there's literally more of us playing around with the money. So at the moment on the daily for MMF, we've seen a real cool off in the amount of volume. Opened at 116, we've had a high of 115, and our low has been 112, you can see there. So hopefully we're going to see some support for the $110 range, certainly the dollar range, we would hope, over the course of the weekend. The balance is, do we see more FOMO buying based on the ecosystem narrative and things like that? We've got the Mad launch box coming up and things. I think it's actually called the Mad box. Or do we see more profit taking while we're sitting closer to that 120 range? That might be a thing after our incident here during the week, that people would see this range having been recouped and say, okay, I'm jumping back out just in case. But my guess is continued upside trend generally, and some further green candles, I would imagine, over the course of the weekend. So far, again, 4 hours, roughly 3.5 before closing on the Friday, the 25th of March. We had an open of 116, a high of 115 at the moment. Is that correct? I suppose it's because it's gone down. And our close is looking like 115 as well. So strong recovery for MMF here moving into the weekend. Sky is continuing to hold its $1,500 range, but you can see it has slipped back down there from, I think, a high of around 17 yesterday. Yeah, so you can see we've had a massive, not a massive correction. We've had quite a large correction off our $1,700 high here. You can see the high on yesterday for the 24th was 17.23, and we ended up closing at 16.32. Since then we'd had a high of 16.73, but we have gone back down a low of 15.29, and we're back down at 15.82. Again, some profit taking is mainly what you're seeing here at this significant range. Possible continuation of this downside trend over the weekend. Again, with increased volume and increased interest in the platform, we should also see increased profit taking. Most of this, though, is also around ecosystem narrative and general growth of the project. So a pretty safe prediction is to see some continued upside trend here. The only thing to watch for is the fact that, again, 1500 is incredibly significant psychologically, and if we were to test back down there and to start to move anyway significantly below it, we could see some continued downside to the 1450, 1400 range there. Again, just FOMO selling, fear of missing out on those profits up at $1,500. Otherwise, we want to start retesting to our $1,600, $1,700 ranges to see continued upside and cause that sort of FOMO continued buying that we have seen over the course of particularly the past 10-ish days. You can see here now that we line up those 10 days up to yesterday, at least up to that 1700 point was 112% increase. So again, some people having doubled up their money technically, we would want to watch for, again, continued profit taking. At the same time, the platform is boasting a lot about the fact that as a tomb fork, it has gone through, I think, I can't remember. I think is it 200 epochs without a contraction. So essentially, without anyone pulling out this entire time, and obviously with the token, the dark crypto token remaining above peg for CRO that whole time. Again, tomb forks being an extremely popular thing generally now, we're starting to see awareness of them rising on our platform, not to mind many others out there. So I am expecting some continued upside generally for Sky. We just want to, again, watch out for the profit taking around this 1500 range, and if we're moving below it, watch out for further FOMO profit taking over the course of the weekend where we have large volumes, and especially particularly those middle-sized buyers. If they see downside trend after such a massive profit, they're going to sell out to be safe over the course of the week because they're not going to be able to keep an eye on it. It's a bit of a generalization, but it's a pretty safe one. If you were to look back over the course of a lot of the very young projects here, you can tell that the Cronos chain does a lot at the weekends in general. You can almost literally see the times that people are finishing work in the States and things like that. They seem to add up, where the largest user bases tend to behave in sort of generally that hive mentality. So it's kind of predictable that we should see some large swings in many of the projects over the course of weekends, so it's fun to keep up with there. So again, Sky holding up its $1,600 range at the moment, but we seem to be holding up its $1,500 range at the moment, but we seem to be moving steadily towards it on the daily. We're down overall about 3%, so just one to watch for as it creeps towards the 1500 mark, and for profit taking may see some more downside here. Only other hopium is general continued narrative for the ecosystem and FOMO buying in over the course of the weekend. So we just want to watch out for both of those eventualities on Sky. So jumping over real quick here to CRN, just want to cover the fact I think we had a little extra drop since. So Yeah, so we have turned back up a little bit now since. So yesterday we did make it towards a low of 467 again, really solidifying those scary ranges of $5. But you can see at least here we're back up 23%, quite significant, quite fast, from an opening of 528 to a closing possibly at the moment of 656. And I imagine this is largely to do with a re-release of their website and homepage. I think they integrated the Crypto.com DeFi wallet, and there were some other news in their Discord there. So obviously some positive and encouraging narrative around the project is moving some price action back up above that $5 range. We want to be very careful within here, see what happens over the course of the weekend. Again, very significant time for people selling in particular. You seem to find when things are generally down over the course of a week, you might see continued moves over the course of a weekend downwards. And just predicting that, because it's not one of those projects where people might necessarily see a bargain on the dip, unfortunately, or certainly not yet. It would be like myself, if I was to be very interested, we'd be waiting to see moves below that kind of $3.50, $3 range, which I do not hope for the project. I do not hope for that. My hopium is that we correct off these sides now, even over the weekend. Let's say absolute hopium case would be that people see the news and other parts of the chain see the news, and you see some excitement and some bolstering of the project because nodes are popular anyway, and that we start to move above those $6.50 ranges back up towards the $8 and $9, then we'll start to see a movement, a confirmed movement towards $10, and the $10 being psychologically significant again, and a place of previous slight support. At least you can see the volume really slowed down here on the $10, and this sell-off we have had here is due to their tax reduction ending. So the taxes were reduced for a time and then they ended. I think it was only yesterday, which obviously you can see the sell-off into that happening here, but quite an encouraging buyback here in the daily, back up 23%. One to watch for over the weekend. Let's see what happens with CRN, and as we're talking, making another move back up to 680, increasing that percentage to 28% back up. So encouraging things from CRN. Hopefully we can see a bottom here and that we start to print some more green daily candles moving out of here. More realistic prognosis is to expect some downside to that $4.20 range and below over the course of the weekend. That would be more predictable, given this large buyback after obviously the news of the launch of their website and stuff. Again, there may be some hopium in the works over the weekend for CRN, so we'll keep an eye on that now in the next 48 hours. Very interesting move there alone, because for much of yesterday it was looking like we might be correcting down below those $5 and continued, but it's after making a very positive strong move here in the daily now back off that with the announcement of the new website and etc. So we'll keep an eye on that over the weekend. One of the last ones I want to cover here is MMO. Our Mad Meerkat optimizer token, literally just want to say continued uptrend here, a strong spike, and as we saw the other day we had a small bit of downturn, but on the 21st, after a bit of consolidation, just a slight calm in volume there, we corrected over 25% back up, and I believe we did hit it at least. Yes, at one stage we hit the high of 10.06. So finally we have that moniker for Mad Meerkat Optimizer. It has hit that $10 at this stage. Expect to see some profit taking off of this range over the weekend. As such a popular token, I would expect to see some strong sell pressure, some strong profit taking. What have we got from the 16th? So I mean, over like 10 days now at the moment, we have made it 45% up. I suppose the only thing against any strong sell pressure we might see is, again, FOMO buying over the course of the weekend, hitting that extremely psychologically significant area of $10. People literally saying to themselves, I don't want to see this at 100 quid in 6 months. So, which, you know, how realistic would that be? But absolutely, probably, no, it wouldn't be that realistic at all. But certainly at the moment, I would watch in a stronger case for the profit taking over the weekend, that we might see some large volumes, and maybe some wicks back down to that $9 range, just profit taking off the $10. I suppose the hopium being that we move above the $10 just by nature of FOMO buying over the weekend. So we'll have a look at that MMO over the weekend. Again, we had the opening of 943, had a pretty mammoth cool move, finally broke it up to the $10.06, and it's looking like we might have a closing of 983 here 3.5 hours before closing at midnight UTC. The last one we want to cover here is the NESS share token from Dark Crypto, and under darkcrypto.finance, it is darkness.finance. Seen a small bit of a move upwards here now. Again, very low volume on Darkness after its ICO and lack of excitement. I suppose we are waiting on the NESS room. It's going to be the equivalent of the boardroom. Apologies, I have a phone ringing next to me. It's going to be the equivalent of the boardroom in Dark Crypto. So we hopefully are seeing some buy volume leading, some rumor buying, let's say, leading into that news event. Again, Dark Crypto itself is doing a lot. It's associated. They have a strategic partnership, so they say, at least, with Mad Meerkat Finance. And again, its socials are doing well. They're making lots of announcements. They're keeping the community constantly updated. They've had some, let's just say, rumor mill announcements too in there. So if you aren't into the Discord, definitely jump in to see. But we've seen a hint at NFTs and all sorts of interesting stuff out of Dark Crypto. So again, generally the NESS share token benefiting hopefully from some of this ecosystem interest. And once we start to see serious volume in the Darkness US dollar swap platform, we might see some increased interest and growth out of the NESS share token. Again, once we have further staking opportunities and that kind of thing. But you can see we're continuing the downtrend in volume, just that we are moving upwards, that those candles are positive, and the buy versus sell pressure is positive. So encouraging signs over the last few days here with NESS share. Again, still one to watch just generally, and it sounds terrible, but out of boredom from the ecosystem. If we are not seeing further moves, if this trend doesn't continue, we could very easily be looking at moving back down to that 60 cents range and settling there again. We seem to have moved away from the 60 cents range as a point of danger, that we were watching more for those 55 and below ranges. But certainly now I would hope that our next targets, the hopium being, would be to hit the 65 and start moving above there, and you might see some FOMO movements then, because as a share token, again, people are going to be very interested in this. So once we see some upsides and a significant amount of green candles, particularly printed in our 4-hour and dailies, we might psychologically again see some FOMO buying for the NESS share token over the course of the weekend. So we had an open here of 62 cents, and it's looking like we might have a close of the same, just a small percentage move, 1%. But again, some more encouraging, just slow upwards trend for the NESS share token. Again, looking to repeat the 550k volume type candles we had here back over on the 21st to start to make some moves above that 65 cents range and start finding some support and settling up above there. Until then, unfortunately, the 60 cents range is still one to watch for. Moving back down there would indicate that we have continued essentially boredom to go through in the next couple of weeks with NESS until there's significant interest in the platform. But hopium being that we do a few candles up again over the weekend to that 65 cents range and start staying safe while there's a lack of interest here generally in the NESS share platform. So that's it from me, the Cronos Watcher, for another round of the charts on Friday the 25th. I will see you tomorrow around the same time on Saturday to have a look at some of the weekend action. Certainly if you made it this far, definitely hit me up on Twitter if there's a token I'm not covering and I would cover, just drop it in the comments if you see me tweeting or anything, or drop it in the comments here if you're watching. And if you have made it this far, thank you for doing so, and I will talk to you tomorrow.